Hi, everyone, and welcome back to The Things We Know. I'm Lisa Callahan.
And I'm Kari Morin.
And today we have a very special guest with us. I'm so excited. Marie and I have known each other, gosh, about 6 years now, and yet never physically met. That's sort of the life of a coach. But I'm so excited to have Marie here. She is I guess this is a first time published author, right? You've written other books, but this is your first published one. And it's such an important book. Table for One, please. How to Date Yourself.
That's the
It's
title.
so great to be here, you guys.
So excited.
Yeah, and I believe you brought with you a contributing writer slash editor, right?
I contributed wisdom. I didn't necessarily edit anything per
Ah,
se. Although I guess there were times in the writing process that you and I discussed it a little bit.
I was I
Listen,
was
there were
I
there
was
were
thinking
times
you were a
when I sent you
contributor, yeah.
things and said, "Can you please read this and make sure it makes sense?"
Right. Yeah. So I guess on some level that was editing. All right. So let me introduce Marie. I'm so excited. So full name is Marie Jefferson Jones. She has a background in nursing and counseling. She's always had a love of writing fiction and translated that love into her own self-discovery and healing journey to write, again, the name of the book, Table for One, Please, A Girl's Guide to Dating Herself. And it looks like this for our YouTube people. There we go.
Mhm.
Um, she plans to keep writing fiction and nonfiction with several works in progress. I saw you say that the other day on Facebook that you have like 4 books in the works. When Marie isn't writing, she loves spending time with her boyfriend Kelly, her family, her little dachshund Daisy May. She loves football, baseball, horror, fantasy, sci-fi, and attempting to play video games. Theme parks top her must list do for every year, along with pool time and fishing. So I am so excited to have you here. You hope that everyone that completes this book will find joy in making time to date themselves and make their best relationship the one they have with themselves, which I love. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here and talk to you guys about this book and hear what you guys think about it now that you've both seen it and gotten to go through it a little bit.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So yes, Kari and I both have copies. I'm going to be honest. I don't really remember. I think you started writing this and then jumped into and said to me like, I want to put your wisdom in here. So what was your initial reason for wanting to write this book?
So I don't know that I can pinpoint a reason for wanting to write the book necessarily. It was when you and I were working together, when you were my coach, and you would have me write down things.
Yeah.
And then I would talk about those things with some of my friends, and they're like, oh my gosh, that's really brilliant. And I don't know why I couldn't think of that on my own. And I'm like, well, all our brains work differently. I mean, that's why there's books about things, because you can't always think of everything on your own. And it just kind of went from these homework assignments that you gave me into chapters into, oh my gosh, this concept of making deliberate time to spend with yourself doing things that you enjoy is so important.
Yeah.
Mm, That's awesome. I love hearing that's what it came from. Um, I what I like about it too is just the experience you're taking people through. Because it sounds like Lisa took you through an experience that inspired you to think about it. And I don't see a lot of other things like this out there. I definitely have seen, date yourself, that concept. Um, but I love that, like, I love this, the format you put it in, like, because you're not here to give everyone the answers. You're here to help them cultivate their own, which is like what we do in sessions, right? As coaches.
Exactly. And I think
Um,
that comes from my counseling background. Like as a
yeah,
counselor, I'm not expected to give people answers. I'm
right.
expected to hold their hand as they walk through the journey and find the answers on their own. And that's the only way, I think, to really make meaningful change in your life. You can't
Mhm.
make a meaningful change if somebody just says, this is what you need to do. You go do it right now. You have to find that motivation and desire within yourself as you're walking that journey, and then you find those answers.
Totally. And are you already getting feedback from this? I know it just is just dropping, so I'm just curious what kind of
I
feedback you're
am.
already getting. Oh, cool.
The soft launch was actually back in July. So it has been available in 140 countries. And we're working on getting it translated into 6 different languages. Um, and the feedback that I'm getting is just incredible. People who don't read are sending me messages and saying, I couldn't put this book down. I couldn't do the homework because I had to get to the end. And I did that in 24 hours. And now I'm going to go back through and do the homework because I see how important it is.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, it's just the fact that you can go through the book so many different ways is just incredible. And that you can set it down and pick it back up weeks or months later and do it again, because we're all in different points in our lives and those questions can be asked over and over again with different answers.
Yeah,
That's so true.
I do. I love, yeah, it's a workbook. As well as a guide. There, as Kari just said, there's work to be done in there. And I always love that that's the way you went with this, to make it interactive. And you're right, people can go over it time and time and time again. When you, correct me if I'm wrong, and no offense to Kelly, but you and Kelly were not together when you started this book, right?
No.
Okay, so tell me about that. Like, starting the book as a single woman, and now you and Kelly have been together for years. So give me that arc.
So I don't know that it had really kind of solidified into a book at that point in time. I knew I had a bunch of writings that I wanted to do something with. And I think I had kind of a loose table of contents, like this is the information I'd like to include in the book. This is kind of the broad general concept. But really, meeting Kelly and getting into a relationship with him was what made me realize how important this book was going to be, because he encouraged me to keep my own interests. He encouraged me to do things without him. He encouraged me to go away for the weekend by myself so that I could write. He encouraged me to just embrace that process of continuing to date myself, even though we were together. And it just, I mean, I don't know that there are really words to describe how much that affected my ability to not only finish the book, but really live what I had written.
I love that. And you talk about that a lot in the book, that even as you get into a relationship, it's not a done. You're not done. Now that you're in a relationship, you don't put yourself on a shelf, right? And so I love that. I have one other question I wanted to ask. Oh, but you've been in 2 other long-term relationships before Kelly.
Correct.
And so Kelly's completely different than the relationships you've been in before.
Very much so. Very much so. And I think,
how do you think you attracted that?
Because I had started dating myself. I really believe that. Like, I knew how I was treating myself and I knew what I was doing to date myself. So I knew what I wanted somebody else to do. And when somebody else wasn't doing that, then I knew it wasn't going to work, because I know what my love languages are. And if somebody else doesn't care enough to see what I do for myself or to listen when I say these are the things that I want, then I don't see a future there, because there's not enough mutual respect to make a relationship work.
Right. And essentially the way you love you is the instruction booklet for people around you, right?
Exactly.
Like, people are going to love you the way you love you.
Yeah.
What I keep thinking of too, when I was reading this, and you said it in so many words a few times, but is you don't need to be single to take yourself through this process. You can change your relationship taking yourself through this process.
Absolutely.
And I think that that's so important. I have this weird AI thing. It causes things on the screen. Sorry. That I don't know how to turn off. I mean, I'll give a thumbs up to that, because I think that that's great. I think that so many things about learn to love yourself and date yourself really are aimed at assuming that the reader is single. And I like that yours didn't. It really is all about, like, everything in your life's going to improve when your relationship with yourself improves.
Absolutely. And I think it's important for both parties in a relationship, because both parties need that separation. Not every hobby or interest that you have is going to align. And that's okay. Because if it did, somebody's not being honest with themselves or with the other person. So giving the gift of time to your significant other is also very special, because you're allowing them to have their own interests and to date themselves. And in the process, you're creating a better relationship for both of you.
Yeah. gosh, can't
Yeah.
even like my oldest is in a relationship and I'm just, you just want to like say things that with him and like his peers and a lot of younger people and people, even my clients, right? There's just such a myth and fantasy still about like the perfect person's just going to know what I need. They're just going to read my mind, right? Or why can't he read my, like, they're just going to know what I need. They're going to surprise me. I shouldn't have to tell them what I need. And, like I love your myth. Like, I was looking at these as like, this is just, nobody is going to know how to turn you on unless you know how to turn you on. Nobody's going to let you up unless you know how to let you up. Nobody's going to know what you like unless you know what you like. So it really is like, get to know yourself first, for fuck's sake.
I mean, Kelly and I have been together for years, like Lisa said, and I still have to remind him of my love languages sometimes because we're human. He's human. He forgets. He gets busy with work, and fostering that open communication that allowed us to keep our own interests and continue dating ourselves, even though we were together, has allowed me to be able to say to him, hey, listen, I haven't been feeling this love language lately. Can you pick that back up for me? And is there anything that I have been missing for you?
I love that.
No,
go ahead. Nope.
I want to ask something about love languages because I went away for a weekend with 2 girlfriends a few months ago, and they hadn't heard of that, and so I was like pulling it up on the long drive and like testing, having them answer the questions, and I was trying to explain it because I do understand it. I think you have a deeper understanding. How do you explain to people like I have 2 questions. If you know your love language, how do you use that with yourself in the context of like what we're talking about? And then also, how do you explain to people how to have both of yours met if it's not the same one?
All right, let me pull up the love languages real quick so that I don't misspeak.
Yeah, I was thinking that's so funny. I was thinking the same thing. And
So
we can edit this.
in the book by Gary Chapman, which is a great read if people haven't read it. The 5 love languages that he talks about are words of affirmation, acts of service, receiving gifts, quality time, and physical touch. So my love languages that I feel most strongly when love is being given to me are receiving gifts and quality time. So, like when I'm dating myself, I have a friend who owns a boutique and she has a budget for me and she knows my clothing sizes. And once a month, she sends me a box. And so it's a little gift to myself that I didn't have to pick out. It's super fun to open. She always sends me things that I think I would never have picked out in a store, but then I try them on and they look amazing. And I'm so excited that that's what she picked out. And so like, that's what the receiving gifts looks like in dating myself. The quality time for me is just taking that time to sit and do what I want to. I mean, it changes weekly. I have some chronic health issues. So some weeks I feel great. Some weeks I don't. So some weeks my quality time is an hour of yoga. And some weeks my quality time is an hour of reading on the couch or attempting to play a video game on the couch or whatever. But the big thing about the quality time is that I sit and I do what I want to do for that amount of time. And I do not feel guilty. There is no guilt to be had because that is my time to date myself. That is my act of love to myself, giving myself that quality time.
Yeah, and if you haven't read love languages, again, Gary Chapman, it is an easy book. It's also fun to listen to if you are more of an audible person. But the key is whatever your love language is, the person in the relationship with you has to do those things. So like a good example for me, one of mine is acts of service. So, but that might not be Darren's love language. So if I say to myself, oh, but I'm doing the laundry and I clean up the table, like I think, oh, I'm doing the right thing because it's acts of service, but that's not his love language. Now, when he goes and fills up the car up with gas without me asking, I'm like, you're the best, because that's my love language, acts of service. So you have to know your love language, but the other person has to do it. So I love what you're talking about. When you're dating yourself, you are doing it for yourself, but then for your partner, you have to remind them and they have to remind you. So, because Darren's, I think, is more like words of affirmation and physical touch. And so I have to remind myself that even though that's not what lights me up, it's what makes him feel loved. Right. So it's really fascinating. It is a really interesting book. And I think there's another one that's like your sixth love language, but I don't remember what that is. So we don't need to talk about that.
I like this because it's all about communication. It's learning to say, like, this is what I need. And I see that this is what you need and I'm going to do it. But the bridge that kind of brings you back to is at least sitting and recognizing, okay, he's loving me in the way that makes sense to him. I'll at least like recognize that. And I'll ask for the thing. I'll ask and remind the thing that I need. So I do like that. I like that recognition that, you know, I can see that somebody's loving me in the way that they think is loving and they need a reminder.
And when you're dating yourself, right, you're modeling for your partner.
Yes.
What is important for you?
So true. That's
absolutely.
That's so cool.
So who do you hope reads this? I mean, we've already talked about it not necessarily being for single people. It's a girl's guide to dating themselves, but has Kelly taken advantage of this?
Kelly has read it.
Okay.
My stepdad has also read it. And jokingly, he came to me after he got about halfway through the book and said, I don't know if I can finish this because I think I have to break up with myself.
Oh,
that's hilarious.
Did he say why he had to break up with himself?
I think because it was just going to be too much work to keep dating himself.
That is hysterical.
He was running out of money.
He does have some expensive hobbies. No, I think that it's appropriate for everyone. I'm a girl. So that was the perspective that I could write from. And I do believe that as women, we are conditioned growing up that we are supposed to kind of put ourselves to the side to caretake for our families and our significant others. So I think that this concept of dating yourself and putting yourself in the forefront so that you have the energy and the time and the mental clarity to give to your family is very important.
Yeah, I mean, and I think this is probably something I said to you way back in the day. It's like, we're no good taking care of anybody if we haven't taken care of ourselves first. So I do think in this book, I'm going to hold it up again and we'll have links, but I'm going to hold it up again for YouTube. Yay! When you learn how to date yourself and you're taking care of yourself first, everyone else benefits. No one suffers when you put yourself first. It is exactly the opposite. And that cannot be repeated enough times, because you're right. There's two things going on. One is women, up until you hit menopause, you really have a lot of estrogen, which is the caring hormone. We do naturally want to care for other people, which is great and fine and nature, right? But again, if we are constantly coming from a depleted cup, I know we talked about this, then there's nothing to serve. There's nowhere, you cannot help other people if you're not helping yourself first.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I thank you for bringing that up, because like I was thinking two things: empty cup, and the other thing I wrote down here was the attention and the self-awareness experiences you give them to negative self-talk. That is a big dismantling piece I do with clients. I know Lisa does the same thing too. It's like, would you talk to someone you're dating that way?
Exactly.
Like, would you be that mean? I mean, maybe, but but like, it's such a reflection, and it's, you know, it's really obvious, you know, your stuff, and obviously because of your background, and from good coaching, that like you don't tell people to just start talking nice to themselves. You get deep. Like, what is that really about? What is that really trying to get your attention around? Right. And I love that. I just think that, the probably the biggest thing that gets in the way of anybody who isn't having the relationships they want. I mean, even with friends, I go through this with one of my kids, is the way that they are just putting themselves down all the time. Like it's constantly on a loop, and it is not a fun date.
No, and the book does talk about in several places that even though I focus on a romantic relationship, it's applicable to all relationships.
Right.
Like you can't have a good friendship if you guys are always together and always doing the same thing. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
think about roommates in college. Like you all had your different lives. You all had separate classes and different things going on. And it wouldn't have worked well if there were 4 girls stuck in a house all the time doing exactly the same thing. So,
Be my nightmare.
right, mine too. So it's important to remember that even though the focus of the book is more on how to date yourself going through romantic relationships, it's also how to date yourself and uphold any relationship in your life, whether it's friendship, family, romance,
Work even.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is for any relationship. No
Yes.
question. Yeah, I love it.
When I was like on my parenting journey with younger kids, because my youngest is now 17, but like when my oldest was hitting puberty, pre-puberty, I went to this parenting class where she said, you know, you think your kids want to talk about puberty. They're curious. They're obsessed with relationships. And usually it's about friends. If you pay attention to this now and help them with this now, that will translate into the partners they attract. And that was just such a aha for me to notice that, yeah, like who you hang around with starting 4th and 5th grade, like you said it in the book, like who, you know, who you want to be has a lot to do with who you're hanging around, right? And so you can shift that and choose differently. I love when you said that, because that's when you start paying attention to it. Your self-esteem is going to dictate, like if you're hanging around with people that put you down, or people that lift you up, or people that drain you, or people that, you know, give you energy. That is how you practice for a partner, is with friends.
Absolutely. And it's so important to be in tune with that because it affects so many different things in your life, not just finding better relationships or finding the right relationships for you. But if you're around people who keep telling you that you can't achieve your dreams, you can't have that house you want, you can't get that car you want, you can't get that job you want, then you start to believe it. And then that filters into that circle of negative self-talk. And then you don't get to achieve the things that you wanted in life. And I'm a big believer that surrounding yourself with the right people and manifesting works.
Mm.
I was going to say, I mean, you know, when we first started working together, you were still in your last relationship, but you, and I don't think because I remember asking you this, you didn't know when we started working together that relationship was going to end, but it ended about halfway through our first like 3 months together, if I remember this correctly. So there must have been something already in your head that, like, whether subconsciously or not, that this was not the right human for you, right?
Oh, I absolutely knew. I just was lying to myself.
Okay, that's right. You did say that. You were lying to yourself. So tell me about like that, what you had gone through previous to us working together, and how you because I remember you coming in still pretty fucking strong. Like I from the get-go, I was like, well, the first time we even talked on the phone, I fell in love with you, which I remember saying at the end of the call. But
I'm
like
we were on the phone for like 2 hours that day.
yeah, so much for an hour-long discovery call.
My life.
Yeah.
Wait, past discovery into like first
straight
session.
into friendship. But you were very, I already knew you were super strong and you were going to be able to do this, but manifesting was a big piece of what we worked on, which is getting away from the whatever you put your attention to, you're going to get. And you were really working on unpacking and unraveling what you were believing about yourself at the time. And stepping into the manifesting, and you have manifested your house, you've manifested Kelly, you've manifested this book. Like, talk more about all of that.
Okay, so I had been through 2 long-term relationships that both involved various forms of abuse, which I just have to disclaimer, if you are in a situation and you're listening to this where there's abuse, there's help. Text me about makeup. I will help you.
Love it.
send me a message on Facebook about makeup. We'll figure it out. But realizing that I not only deserved better, but that power was within me to have better. Really just, I mean, that was just kind of the switch that flipped. My first relationship, I did not take time to heal afterwards, which is why I got into a second not good relationship. So after that relationship ended, I just told myself, like, I'm a year at least, and I am not even going to think about dating anybody.
Yep.
And that was, I think, either the first or second full year that you and I were working together. And that was my year of yes.
Yeah.
So I said yes to everything that I possibly could and had all these amazing adventures and drove across the country by myself with my dog and just learned who I was.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to be. Even growing up, I mean, I had a great childhood. My parents believed in me 100%, but they had very traditional ideals. So it was, you know, you go to college and you get a degree and you get a job. And I don't regret going to college and getting degrees and having jobs, but there might have been other things that I wanted to do. So I really had to just like blank slate, erase everything and figure out what I wanted life to be.
And I remember remember you making that box?
Yes.
Like you put your old beliefs and your old life in a box and you wrapped it up. And I remember you putting it on Facebook and being like, I am done. Did you burn it?
I did.
Oh, I don't think I knew you burned it. Wow.
I burned it.
Love it. And then opened a new box.
I did.
I mean, that's literally what this pod is all
amazing.
about, right?
Yeah.
Is recognizing that no matter what you've gone through, the best is still ahead of you. And you have absolutely the complete ability to make every day your next best day. No question.
100%.
I love that. I sorry, keep going.
Oh, one of my favorite quotes in the whole wide world is from Hugh Downs, which sounds really odd, but I grew up watching 2020 with him and Barbara Walters.
Totally.
Yep.
But he said, a happy person is not a person in a certain set of circumstances, but rather a person with a certain set of attitudes. And that has been just how I have lived my life for the last 6 years. Like I said, I have chronic health problems. So every day is not a great health day. But you know what? I've shifted my attitude on those days that I don't feel great. So instead of thinking, well, this sucks, I'm just stuck to the couch, I'm like, hey, this is a great day to finally finish that book that I've been working on, or watch that movie that I wanted to watch and Kelly didn't, or whatever it is, work on my crochet project. And it's just so important to realize that power is within you to change your attitude about every situation. I'm not saying that there aren't situations that suck, because there are. You lose people, it's hard, there's grief, but you go through that cycle and you figure out how you can best live the rest of your life to honor those people instead of just dwelling in the bad.
Is there anything else that came through to you as you were writing this book that maybe surprised you? Like as you were writing it, did you surprise yourself?
I surprised myself a lot when I was writing this book. Mostly I struggle sometimes to succinctly put my thoughts into sentences. And I think that was one of my biggest shocks, was that I'd sit down at the keyboard and be like, and like 2 hours later, I'm like, holy shit, this is a chapter and it makes sense.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I remember you like, sending those to me and being like, does this make sense? And there was never once that I read a chapter and was like, yeah, nah. I mean, it was really, but again, I think that's the manifesting, right? That's the divine inspiration that this was exactly the book you were supposed to be writing at exactly that time. I know you're an amazing fiction writer, and I know there'll be more of those books coming out, but this feels so important. And especially in this time where I do think women are starting to understand their power in this world and stepping into it in a way that, I don't know, feels different to me. I think Kari and I talk about this off camera all the time. Like, it just feels like a turning point, and this book feels like the exact right book to be reading at this time.
Yeah, we have this hope, especially with her daughter, and people, like our youngest age, that this kind of dismantling will become unnecessary.
Yeah.
But it isn't. It is so necessary right now. It's essential for relationships and growth, and just that self-awareness journey, and to like really work through some traumatic experiences. So it's this beautiful thing that came through you, and I love that it flowed out of you, and it was exactly what it was meant to be. I'm curious for you, Lisa, like, and actually Marie, like, what was the inspiration to have Lisa be involved? Like, tell me about that process and bringing her in, and like, Lisa, what was your experience being able to add to it and seeing yourself in her book? Like, so cool.
I'll let Marie start.
I think for me, it was just because so much of the first part of writing the book came from our sessions together. And there were so many things that we talked about, like the 557 breath and the critter brain, that I knew I couldn't explain properly because that's not my domain. So I wanted those things to be in the book, but I wanted them to come from someone who was well versed in them. And so that was why I was like, hey, let's do some added wisdom from Lisa.
That's awesome.
I mean, it was so fun, and just a great collaboration. I've never fancied myself an author by any stretch of the imagination. That I leave that to Darren and Liam and Charlotte. And so to be able to just kind of dip in and, as you said, speak on what I already know, and what, especially everything you asked me to contribute on, and maybe this is why you did, those are the cornerstones to me of transformation. When you talk about 557 breath, it's about how to move yourself from fight, flight, or freeze into rest, and being able to bring down your stress level. The idea of the critter brain, I mean, that's the part of your brain that's trying to keep you safe, but never talks to you very nicely. So when you go around the whole negative self-talk piece, that's where that comes from. So I didn't feel like it was not even remotely a burden on me, because I was just like, yeah, this is literally stuff I talk about all the time. And of course, I was just so honored and grateful that you even asked me to be part of this. It was fun. And I'm just so proud of you.
Thank you.
I love when I can just like elevate my clients as well. Cause as strong
I can
as
imagine
you were,
like, oh, go ahead.
Well, I'll just say, as strong as I knew you were the day we met, your transformation to the person that I'm talking to right now is not even 180 degrees. I mean, it's like you're just a whole different human than you were when I met you 6 years ago. Hands down, no question. And you have been for quite a while, but now it's really integrated. This is just you. Like, what would you say to that past Marie? What would you say to that Marie that when we first talked?
Keep going.
Yeah.
Because there were a lot of times that I did think like, this is the best it's going to be. This is it. This is like, everybody who says that they have a happy life, they have to be lying, because like, I had times of happy, but it wasn't consistently happy. So I would just tell myself to keep going and to be nice to myself. Because I really was not nice to myself then.
I was just thinking of several people and clients that I would love to give this to, but also I was wondering if Kelly could help you create, maybe you don't need him to, but create a guide for young men. A boy's guide to dating himself. So I think it would be so interesting in this world where we've interviewed our two 22-year-old sons, and at the time my oldest one wasn't in a relationship. Liam's really good at being in a relationship. Peter's new, also seems really good at it, but like, so much of the struggles and insecurities that happen, but young men are so much more like open to understanding like how to go against patriarchy and all the like old kind of tropes and things, and be more open to an equal partnership, and men our age are open to learning it. So just curious if there's a guide aimed at young men.
That is in the works, not with Kelly,
Uh.
but with a couple of colleagues of mine who are both psychologists
Nice.
and have spent a lot of time working in the schools with middle school and high school age
Boys.
young men.
Nice.
So that is definitely in the work. And there is the one in the works with Kelly too. He works in sales. And so we are going to do a table for one. They're all going to be table for one, or not table for one. I'm sorry. They're all going to be the For One Please series. So that first word will change with every book, but the one that I'm going to be working on with Kelly is Boardroom for One Please, the psychology of sales.
Ooh,
Neat.
love that.
We're gonna have to have you back. This is so cool.
And bring Kelly on as well. We don't often have men, but sounds like that'll be worth it. Yeah. What else? What other projects do you have? Not fiction as well as nonfiction.
So I have 2 fiction books in the works right now that I am writing by myself. One of them is about a female archaeologist who is also a medium. So she goes to dig sites and gets to communicate with the ghosts and figure out what was going on. And there's, you know, some mystery and some intrigue and maybe a love triangle in there too. The other one is like a dystopian novel. I'm hoping it will be one of 3 books about life after a war that was fought because the fantasy fictional creatures, or the fantasy creatures that we think are fictional, really are not. And the government found out about them and tried to eradicate all the fairies and trolls and vampires and
that one sounds fun. Actually, both of them sound fun. I remember the archaeologist with the medium. I was always like, oh my God, that sounds amazing. And so filmic, like that feels like a film.
Yeah.
That would be wonderful.
I was just in New Zealand, so I picture all the fairies and trolls in there.
And my mom and I just started writing a book together. We have the love letters between my great grandparents. So we are using those letters to write a historical fiction romance.
Neat.
Oh, that's cool. I
Yeah.
love that.
Were they apart and writing letters, or were they just writing letters and handing them
They
to each
live
other?
about 30 miles apart when they started like courting. And he was quite a bit older than she was. So the letter writing was kind of how things had to go until she got a little bit older. But some of the letters are kind of spicy.
Nice.
For, you know, back in the 1914s.
That's awesome.
So
That's
she
awesome.
talks about being mad at him because he left hickeys on her neck. So she had to wear a turtleneck in July.
Oh
That
my
is
God.
great.
So if you want to know where the strong woman came from,
Yeah.
started back there.
Clearly.
Do
Oh
not
my
mark
God.
me.
Yeah.
Love it. That is so great. I have letters between my parents, and my dad, you know, was overseas in the military, and I think, oh, are we going to be able to do that in future generations? Like have their texts?
Yeah,
Right?
that's
They're gonna
true. Yeah, because
text
I have
into an
letters
album?
too.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
It's so. I hope we haven't lost that kind of correspondence history, you know, going forward. That's really
Yeah.
neat.
Nails.
So, as you know, we always feature lyrics at the end of our pod. And when you said what you wanted yours to be, I was like, duh. And first,
Perfect.
and also like, why have we never used this song before?
I don't
So
know.
I know, right? Isn't that crazy? So before we ask you that, are there any final things you'd like to share with the audience? And where can they find the book?
The book is on Amazon, Walmart.com, Target.com, BarnesandNobles.com. I'm working on getting it into some local bookstores here and hoping that will translate to being in bookstores nationwide. But Amazon and Barnes and Noble, I think, are the easiest to navigate when you're trying to buy it.
And let's say the name again. So of course it'll be in our notes, but it's Table for One, Please, A Girl's Guide to Dating Herself.
And I did want to just, Kari had asked a while ago about who I hoped read the book, and then we got kind of onto a different
Yes.
subject.
Yeah, we
really
did.
quickly. So the short answer, and if you read the book, you'll know that I like short answer and long answers to the same question. The short answer is everybody. But I really think that where my brain was when I wrote it was with 25-year-old me, who was just thinking about like marriage and this long-term relationship. And I wish that I had had this knowledge back then, because I would have made some very different choices had I known how to date myself and known what I deserved in a relationship and how someone should have been treating me. So I would love for it to be in every woman's hands in the United States and the world. But really that was kind of where I was when I wrote it. So I would hope that anybody who's, getting ready to think about a long-term relationship, or no matter what their age is, whether they've been in one and are now looking for another one, or whether it's new, that they would be the ones that would turn to this book.
Well, and as you said, Kari, earlier on, like, this isn't about if you're in the middle of a relationship that you want to salvage and you need, this is a great book, because the only thing you can do is turn inward.
Totally. I just teared up. I giggled when you said middle, because it's like, I'm at the beginning. But like, how do you know where you are sometimes? But I teared up listening to you say 25-year-old me, because I mean, a direct quote from me many times, even when my kids were little, they would ask, binary questions like, how old do you have to be to get married? They didn't know that there was like any time really, but I would say 30. They'd say, well, how old were you when you got married? I said 26. And I'm really lucky that I still, laugh at his jokes, and I still, enjoy him. But in general, my feeling is, until you're in your 30s, and again, this is very arbitrary. There's some way more mature than me than I was 20 somethings, right? You don't know who you are yet. So how do you know who you want to spend life with until you know you? So take that time to get to know you and be in relationships, but really, like, this is what I love about this. Like, this is the answer to that. Ask yourself these questions, take yourself through this process. There's no urgency to make that decision, even though sometimes, young people feel like there is. There's this sort of clock, and not just biological, but like social clock of like, oh, you guys have been dating, you're gonna get married, you're gonna have kids. It's ridiculous. But it's there, and it's not necessarily the next step. I think the next step is really know yourself.
And I'm hoping that clock, that social clock, will start to be quieter as more people read this book, because I know so many people who don't want to get married, who don't want to have kids, that the life that they are designing for themselves doesn't include those things. I have a good friend who had a great marriage and a huge house in California and a great job, and it wasn't him. That was not the life that he had wanted to design for himself. So now he lives in a camper on the back of his truck, and he travels the world full time as a freelance marketing person, and that's the life that he wanted.
And he finally took the time to like figure that out. That's right, so great.
Exactly. And I think that society just needs to shush and let people live their lives.
I was just having this conversation with a woman the other day, and she's been with her partner for 10 years. And I said, oh, that's okay. Darren and I were together for 10 years, but I was like, but God, the amount of people that somebody literally said, when are you going to shit or get off the pot, to Darren? And he was just like, that was a cousin, I also might add. I was like, we'll do it when we do it, and thank God we had those 10 years together before we got married. It's still, marriage is what it is, as we have been spending the entire month talking about. But if we had gotten married earlier, we would have gotten a divorce. There's no question, because we broke up. And so we spent that 10 years. So yeah, I with you say shush, I want to say everybody needs to shut the fuck up and not pay attention to their own self, and don't worry about how long anybody's been dating or who they're dating. That
or what your
none of your
family
business.
expects, or what your family pattern is. That's definitely not, doesn't have to be yours. Create your own.
100%. This book is just spectacular. I'm so proud of you, and I'm so grateful you came on. And I cannot wait to see what else you create. So with that, what is your lyrics for today?
So this is like, I love to sing karaoke. This is my go-to karaoke song.
Nice.
Yay.
Don't Stop Believin' by Journey.
Woo!
And I think like my favorite lyrics in the whole song are some will win, some will lose, some are going to sing the blues, but the movie never ends. It goes on and on and on and on. And I have always taken that to mean there are times in life where you'll be up here and there's times in life where you'll be down here, but life keeps going. So you have to keep going too.
Mm.
And I just like, I don't know. It's just a big part of my childhood. The 80s hair bands just
Yep.
they'll always have a special place in my heart. But this song for sure, just if I need a pick me up, if I need to like hit pause for a second and be like, wait a minute, this is not a bad 5 days or a bad 5 hours, even it's a bad 5 minutes. Let's back up and take control of my own narrative, throw the song on, and my attitude shifts almost immediately.
I have to tell you, I mean, obviously growing up, I'm older than you, but yes, that's a staple for sure. And I will tell you, never in my life until you just read those lyrics have I had full body chills listening to that that song. But I literally, like, my whole body caught on fire when you read those lyrics.
It's funny how much we know the words and don't think about the words until someone else reads them, because it was my 8th grade graduation song. That's how old I am. It's one of Griffin's favorite songs.
Yeah.
Like, we loved Glee, so I loved when that
Yeah.
like brought it back again. But I loved Journey
I do
and
too. I
all
still
their
do.
songs. So when you said that, I was like, did I know that it was the movie? Did I know it was the movie Never Ends? Like, I'd never thought about it before. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Beautiful.
Can I just say that I'm super excited that they're doing a stadium tour this year and to go.
Is Steve Perry with them, or is it the other guy that sounds like Steve Perry?
I think it's the other guy that sounds
Okay,
like
but he's amazing. Yeah, I don't
he
can tour.
He's incredible.
Yeah. Oh, I hope you get to go. Let me know.
Oh, I already have tickets.
Oh, you do? Awesome. That's amazing. Well, I'm again so thrilled that you said yes to this. I'm thrilled that you wrote this book. It is so very important for every human. In fact, I was thinking I may just go ahead and gift this one to Irina, not because she just because her and Liam have been in a long-term relationship, and before they make any further steps, it could be really
Great idea.
helpful for her to go through this. I'm sure she's going to answer and still want to be with him. I'm not at all concerned about that, but it's important to have your own time and your own ability to date yourself. So I love it. We have links to everything in IG and Facebook and all those things.
Yeah, I just keep thinking of mothers with, grown daughters who I'm going to send this to. They're going to love it. Thank you.
Yeah, I love it. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Marie. It was great meeting you.
And so next week we will be back and to finish off the month of February, all about relationships. But for right now, if this has felt great, if you're like, yes, while you're listening to the entire thing, please share it and send it to some woman who might need to read this book yesterday.
Absolutely. And if you follow us in our social media, please join, let us know how, if you have questions for Marie, we will forward them to her, or how this landed for you, or, what your journey is with dating yourself.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again. And we will be back next week. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.